走れソリよ風のように月見原をパドルパドル
Merry Christmas!
Dragonyule Victor is a seasonal 5-star Shadowlax unit, who is this year's Saint Starfall alongside Lily. He is the last person I expect to be this year's Saint Starfall, but here he is, and he brings along some surprises in his kit, which honestly has a slight resemblance to Nevin's skill set. Let's dive into his kit in more detail. His first skill, Candy Cane Offensive, drops candy canes from the sky that deals 2000% damage and is able to dispel enemy buffs. For a cost of 3540 SP, I would say that the damage to cost ratio is pretty good on this one. The ability to dispel automatically makes him a very good pick for Yan battles, particularly when dealing with his annoying shield. Overall, this skill is pretty useful and has good damage to boot. His second skill, Shooting Stars, is not only the name of the operation in the event story, but also a skill that resembles Nevin's skill 2, only lacking the sigil effect, in exchange for greater damage. With a decent cost of around 6000 SP, this skill drops presence, dealing 2500% damage, and deals 500% extra damage in every buff zone. This skill is pretty good for carpet bombing the enemy, especially if you have units that can create buff zones, such as Gala Cleo, Nevin, and Opera Karina. Overall, this skill is a straight upgrade from Nevin's skill 2, and is a very fun skill, especially when buff zones cover the entire field, only for Victor to use this skill to drop presence everywhere. Victor's co-abilities are somewhat common, yet his chain co-ability is not seen too often. Poised Strength grants a 13% strength buff when standing in a buff zone, which is good, as Victor himself can create buff zones, but works best in a team that can create either lots of buff zones or large buff zones. For his abilities, we'll start with his Blindness Resist, which doesn't make him a good candidate in fighting High Jupiter, which may result in shocking outcomes for Victor. His first unique ability, Yuletide Tactics, allows Victor's next Force Strike to create a buff zone that grants a 16% crit rate buff for 10 seconds whenever he uses his skill 1. This skill is very similar to Gala Cleo's first ability, which buffs strength instead of crit rate. This ability works pretty well, especially with his skill 2, and also with Nevin. His last ability, Holiday Aid, restores Victor's HP with a whopping 50% recovery potency when using his skill 2 in a buff zone. This makes Victor more survivable, but being aware of his positioning is necessary to trigger this ability consistently. Dragonyule Victor's kit is very offense focused, yet he also possesses good supportive capabilities through his buff zone and dispel. He also works especially well alongside teammates that can create buff zones. So for his preferred abilities, I'd go with a standard setup for an offense support hybrid, comprising of skill damage, skill haste, buff time, poisoned punisher, and any strength and crit rate / damage buffing abilities. For his dragon, I would actually go for Giovanni, as he is also able to create a buff zone with his third strike, and also syncs well with Victor's crit rate buff from his own buff zone. Shinobi is another good pick for his skill damage. Other dragons that work well include Merishitan, Fatalis, and Epimetheus. I wouldn't use Cat Sith as he attacks relatively slowly. For his weapon, the Fang Shinhuaji is the obvious top pick for its attack rate buff, and also the additional crit rate buff from the axe's ability. Of course, the shadowy Dark Bite axe and Chimera Tech Fugui are decent alternatives. For his Wimprints, these ones are based on the offense hybrid setup I mentioned earlier. Dragonyule Victor is yet another unit, whose playstyle differs from his classmates of his weapon class. Having said that, his kit works decently well, and as a shadow unit he's gonna be run alongside Gala Cleo, with both of them working extremely well together. However, he struggles when teamed up with teammates that are unable to create buff zones, especially since his SP cost is slightly higher than average, not allowing him to trigger skill 1 frequently, resulting in ineffective damage output from his skill 2. Hence, his effectiveness as a unit depends on which team he is in. Overall, he is a good unit that has a relatively niche role in certain team compositions. Now go out there and save this year's Dragonyule from being ruined by the Empire in the most awesome way possible. That's all for Victor's review. Before I end this video, allow me to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hopefully 2021 will be a better year for all of us. That's all from me. Moga out.